Hey everyone, it's Kenji. We're gonna make some easy ground beef chili. So this is the kind of chili. So I've been taking my daughter skiing a lot, and this is the kind of chili that you get at like the ski lodge, which I love, you know, and it's good because it's easy. It's made from ground beef and beans. I think it's what most people think of in the U.S. when they think of chili, as opposed to, you know, a more traditional like Texas-style chili con carne, which I also have a video for, which I'll link. But as I mentioned in that video, I like all kinds of chili. I'm just a chili guy. You know, no hate if you like it with beans or without. Doesn't matter. Okay, so I've got a little bit of oil in this pot. And this best recipe is very loosely based on the one I have in my book, my first book, The Food Lab. I'm changing a couple steps here and there just based on what I've got and what I feel like today. But I'm taking a little bit of oil, and I'm going to put ground beef in there. High heat. And what we're going to do is we're just going to let this start to brown off. I'm going to let it go without moving it too much at the beginning. You know, so one of the problems with ground beef is that it's hard to brown it. You know, usually a recipe will say brown the beef to help develop flavor. And what often happens is instead of browning it, you kind of gray it. It's because there's so much surface area on ground meat for moisture to escape. So a lot of it, at times, it ends up kind of simmering instead of getting really nice and brown. So one of the ways to solve that, put it in the pan like this. Don't let it move. Get it really nice and brown on one side, the way you would like the outside of a hamburger. And then after that side is browned, we will start to stir it and cut it up into small and break it up into smaller pieces. All right, the other ingredients, I'm going to take an onion, regular old yellow onion. Turn off that little imperfection there. Here's my compost bin. Here's my compost bin. All right, so the onion, if you watch my videos, you know that I like to, when I'm going with my knife, I aim for an imaginary spot that's about one, you know, if this is one, if the height of the onion is 1, from here to here, I aim for a spot that's about 1.5 below. So half an onion's height below the counter is where I'm kind of angling my slices. And that will give you, at least according to the models my mathematician friend made, that will give you pretty close to the ideal slicing, which is like slices that produce pieces that are very even in size with minimal number of cuts. And I also do one horizontal cut a little bit above the bottom. One dice width above the bottom is that horizontal cut, which does, in fact, people will tell you that it has no effect on the size of the onion pieces. Of course it does. No, it does. I mean, you can even see it on the edge of the onion. If I didn't do that slice and I was dicing this, I would end up with, like between here and here, I would end up with a really tall piece of onion. But if I do that one slice, I end up with pieces that are much more closer, much more similar in size. Standard size deviation is a lot smaller when you do it that way. Okay. Got our onion. I'm gonna get some fresh garlic in here also. And then we'll work on our aromatics, our spices. Let's see, how many cloves? 6 cloves I'll do today. This is one of those dishes where like the pre-peeled garlic from the supermarket is just fine. You don't need to peel the cloves yourself for this one. You know, for very garlic heavy dishes where that fresher garlic flavor is super important, I would go with peeling your own. And the reason being that, you know, the stuff that's pre-peeled, they blanch it before peeling it. They dunk it into boiling water, so it does lose some of its sort of flavor versus the fresh stuff. What I typically advise strongly against is any kind of pre-minced garlic. So whether it's garlic in a paste or it's minced garlic in a jar, once garlic is minced, it really rapidly the flavor really rapidly deteriorates. And so don't pre-mince your garlic the day before and leave it in a container, or do if you want to see what happens to it when you do that. But it's always best to freshly mince your garlic. That said, if you use pre-minced garlic and you like the flavor, it doesn't bother you, keep doing it. All right, so you can see I'm getting some nice browning going on here. That stuff there, that's going to give us some extra flavor. But to be honest, with chili, this style of chili, you're adding so much flavor in the form of like chili powder and aromatics and onions and spices that that browning flavor that you get from the beef is only going to be a very minor component. So it's not like a like a hamburger or a steak where the browning is key because that's the only thing giving you flavor. Unless you're doing like a steamed ham, in which I don't recommend. But with chili like this, you don't need to worry too much about sort of really deeply browning all the beef. And in fact, I find that the texture suffers when you do that. So I'll let it brown a little bit more, but then we'll just leave it at that. All right, so for our spice mixture, for this version, so in my book I call for a chili paste, which you make out of fresh, dried chili, whole dried chilies that you cook in chicken, or toast, cook in chicken stock, and then blend. Which, if you look at my Texas chili con carne recipe, I show you how to do that there. In this one, I'm just going to use some chili powder. So chili powder is actually a blend of chilies and spices, typically, unless it specifically says like, ancho chili powder. In that case, it'll be just ground up ancho chili. But saying this is chili powder is generally going to have some other spices in there, and we'll have a mix of chilies. But I still like to add some other spices of my own. I like a lot of cumin in my chili, so I'm adding about, that was, I think, 3 pounds of beef. I'm adding maybe a tablespoon of cumin, which I'm going to grind up in mortar and pestle. You can use powdered cumin if you like. I always keep my cumin whole because first of all, I enjoy grinding things in a mortar and pestle, but you also get better flavor out of it that way. We're going to do some oregano. This is Greek oregano, but this is actually Mexican oregano. But, any kind of oregano will do you. Good amount of oregano in there. Grind that up a little bit too. This smells really good right now. Twig in there. This oregano I have, by the way, I bought it from the Mexican supermarket, and it comes with the flowers, the oregano flowers attached, which are a little big, which is why I grind it. But if you if you're buying just oregano from the regular supermarket, it probably can be used just as is. Like the little leaves are totally fine. You don't have to grind them. All right, now I'll mix in my chili powder here. Go with a couple tablespoons of chili powder, maybe 3 tablespoons, about a tablespoon per pound of meat. And I'll add also a couple teaspoons of garlic powder. If I had some onion powder, I might put that in there too, but I don't right now, so I won't. Why fresh garlic and garlic powder? They just have 2 different flavors, and one is not better than the other. They're just different. So for this case, I like to do a little bit of both. All right, so I'm going to put my onions and garlic in here with this beef now. It's looking nice and brown. I'll just stir that up. If you wanted a little more sort of fresh chili heat in here, you could also, mince up some jalapeños or habanero peppers and toss them in here with the other fresh, with the onions and garlic, with the other fresh aromatics. Or poblano peppers would be good. Even diced bell peppers if you want the flavor but not the heat. That grassy flavor of bell peppers would be nice in here. So we're just going to cook that just for a few brief moments until the onions are a little bit soft. Season with a little salt. A little black pepper. You see, I'm on high heat basically the whole time. And I'll remain that way up until the very end. All right, a couple other ingredients. Not so secret ingredients. Today I'm using Rotel tomatoes. So these, if you've ever had like queso dip from a Tex-Mex place, you know, Velveeta cheese and Rotel is a good recipe for queso dip. Rotel are essentially just diced tomatoes packed with green chilies. If you don't have access to Rotel tomatoes, don't worry about it. Use regular diced tomatoes in a can, or you can use whole peeled tomatoes and just kind of put them in a bowl and squish them through your fingers so that they get mushed up into little pieces. But I like using the Rotel. And if you don't, you know, you could also, if you want that flavor of green chilies, you can get canned diced green chilies. So do a can of tomatoes plus a can of diced green chilies, and you basically have what, you know, what comes in those Rotel tomato cans. Some tomato paste. All right. I'm gonna go in with a few tablespoons of tomato paste and my spice blend. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna toast those spices a little bit. So basically, you know, the beef fat that's come out, we're gonna let the spices, what's called, bloom in that. So you're developing some new flavors in there. You're also releasing some of their, you know, volatile aromatics, and most of them are fat soluble, and so they're, you know, making their way into that beef fat that in turn is going to meander throughout the dish and give the whole thing nice flavor. This beef, by the way, it was 80-20 beef, so 80% lean, 20% fat. With chili, you know, you don't really need all that fat. This is not like a ragu bolognese, for example, where we're going to reduce it down and emulsify that fat into a sauce. With chili, we're adding so much water in here that you can't really emulsify it. You know, water in the form of tomatoes and also some chicken stock. It's not really going to emulsify. So if you have a lot of fat in here, it's going to end up being greasy. So 80-20 is about the most you want to go. You know, you don't want like 70-30 beef. But if you want to do even leaner beef, you know, like 90% lean beef, that'll work just fine. Any kind of ground beef will work in here. Ground turkey would also work fine. Even I've made this chili actually with Impossible, you know, the plant-based meat substitutes, and it works out great. All right, so it's smelling really nice. I can smell, yeah, the aroma of those spices have really developed in the fat. So now I'm going to go in with my tomatoes. Those are two 10-ounce cans of tomatoes. I'm going to add some chicken stock. I'd say about 16 ounces of chicken stock, 2 cups. You saw I rinsed out those cans to get any bits of stuff out of them. And finally, our beans. These are red beans. You can use pintos, red beans, black beans, kidney beans. You know, kidney beans, dark red kidney beans are sort of the classic choice. But I don't have dark red kidney beans today, so I'm using these. I will link to I'll copy and paste the recipe from my book down below so you can see it. It will be a little bit different from what I've actually made here, just because you know, I like to mix it up a bit depending on my mood. And I'll also link to a couple of chili recipes on Serious Eats, one by myself and one by my friend and colleague Daniel Gritzer over there. I think I could actually use a little bit more chicken stock here, so we'll probably a total of 3 cups of stock I'm doing. Now at this point, I'm going to throw in a couple bay leaves, and we could, we could call it a day and just serve it right now. But of course, if you let it simmer a little bit, some of those flavors reduce, some of those flavors develop. It will taste better, if you let it give it maybe a 30-minute simmer. Or you could put this in your pressure cooker and cook it in your pressure cooker for, 20 to 30 minutes, and you'll get more flavor development out of a pressure cooker than you would here. Those bay leaves will add a little bit to it as it simmers. So I am going to let this simmer down a bit before dinner, but you know what? I'm going to taste it now for seasoning. Maybe I'll just get myself a quick bowl, quick bite as is. Doesn't need much. So I'm gonna add a little fish sauce. I know people roll their eyes and it's like, oh, you add fish sauce to everything. Well, I like fish sauce. And, it doesn't make it taste fishy. It just makes it taste really delicious and savory. And the other thing I'll add a bit of is Maseca, so masa harina. This is the dehydrated masa that you would use to make tortillas with. Tortillas or tamales, for example. Sprinkle it over the top and give it a stir in, and that will give it a little bit of body, a little bit of thickness, while also giving it sort of a really nice flavor that I think complements the chili more than, say, like a flour-based roux would. Although, in parts of the country, like you go to like Colorado, Pueblo, parts of New Mexico where they eat red chili or green chili, and oftentimes you'll find those thickened with with wheat flour. So if that's your preference, or if that's what you have, go ahead. Yeah, it takes me back to ski days. All right, I'll just garnish, get a bowl for lunch, let the rest simmer down for dinner. The dinner version will be better than the lunch version, but the lunch version will be just fine. Yep, I have pre-grated cheese here. I mean, I don't want to always grate it fresh, because I got enough other stuff going on in my life to worry about that. Mexican sour cream. A little cilantro. All right. This would be great poured into a bag of Fritos, right? All right. Hamon is upstairs, so I'm not going to go get him, but he'll get some later. This took, what, 20 minutes maybe of active time? All right. Easy weeknight chili. Guys, gals, non-binary pals. I'll see you next time.